And this afternoon, we've got a slightly different approach this afternoon because we're going to hear from the experience of some places who are kind of trying to do things differently. And it's always really good to hear when people have put their head above the parapet and gone, do you know what? We know there are some things that aren't working so well, so let's see if we can actually try and do things differently. And the kind of theme of this afternoon is going again with self-directed support. And Martin's going to say a little bit more. Martin Walker's going to be sort of leading the session this afternoon, and has pulled together all the fab people who are going to be talking. But just to kind of set a little bit of context, and Martin might come back to this, but he'll humour me for saying it anyway, is that when at the beginning of personal budgets, we used to talk about self-directed support as about being to do with that stuff to do with having a personal budget and how you manage your direct payment. And we're saying that self-directed support, as in making sure my support works for me, should be how it is for absolutely everybody, whether you live in your own home, whether you live in some form of supported accommodation, whether you live in residential care or a nursing home, whatever your situation is, you should still be directing what your support looks like. And that's the kind of the overarching theme for this afternoon. So Martin, I will hand over to you and to Kate Sibthorpe, who's also going to be leading lots this afternoon, and I'll let you get going. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Trish. It's great to be with everybody. You probably can't see it, but I'll put a lamp on the bench there to try and compete with Isaac's, but it's no competition whatsoever. But anyway, there we are. Just for those who are here this morning, we love Isaac's lamp. It's great to be here this afternoon. Thanks for the opportunity to be able to try and bring some examples, as Tricia's just said, of places that we've seen that seem to be trying to break the mold, to get past a lot of the problems that we talked about this morning. And I think you're absolutely right, Trish. You know, that notion of self-directed support. I certainly end up in conversations. We very much end up sort of self-directed support equals direct payments, or does it? Or you know, and we talk about, you know, it gets all a bit of a mishmash. Absolutely, I'm absolutely with you, Trish. People, whatever the way people need to be able to draw down on care and support to live a good life. In my book, they should be able to self-direct that, and it's from what we heard this morning, that's clearly not the case for lots and lots of people. So we've been at, as you might hope, at TLAP, we've been working on this for some time, and we've been trying to find those places, trying to find those examples, and trying to understand what it is about those places that's making a difference, or how they're able to get past some of this. And you're going to hear about some of that. We've written some of that up. That's the sort of thing that we do to try and share with everybody, whether or not it's people who need care and support, or people who work in councils or in health, to be able to produce things, documents, resources we call them, to help other places to think about what they need to do to do more of that good stuff. And we've written up two experiences fairly recently. We've got one published, so you can see that on the TLAP website now, and we've got one on the way. But I'm able to show you sort of what's in the covers of that document this afternoon. First of all, though, we're going to show you a little film that we've made that kind of summarises what we're talking about. So let's watch the film.
Direct payments can offer people choice and control over their lives. At Think Local Act Personal, we've been looking at how to make them work better. Here are 5 key things we learnt. Peer support between people with direct payments helps everyone. It's not just about information on leaflets and websites. Good support and information for people who work with direct payments help them to feel confident and skilled. They also need to be people with the right values and motivations. Leadership is vital. That means long-term commitment and direct payments fitting in with other council priorities. making sure that funds are used well, which leads to positive outcomes for people to lead independent lives. Direct payments can help individuals. Take Sam.
I was living in horrible accommodation after I left college. It was really badly managed and the bins were always overflowing. There were mice and rats running around. I really didn't like the way I was being supported. Luckily, I have a wonderful advocate. I told her about the issues with my support. She told me about direct payments. I thought it was a good idea. It meant I could employ my own personal assistants and live the life I want to live. My life got better. I still wasn't happy where I was living. I had a meeting with my personal assistants and circle of support, and I said I want to move out to my own place. I was so happy when I found somewhere to live on my own.
What needs to be in place from councils to help people like Sam? Good information and clear expectations. Defining how the personal budget is set, including a fair contribution. Being flexible about what a direct payment can and can't be used for. Balancing choice and safety, being able to take appropriate risks. Accounting for the money. Using common sense. Making sure the setup time doesn't take too long. Seeing direct payments as a positive option and using everyday friendly language in communication. Valuing co-production in the way that direct payments are monitored and governed. When direct payments are used well, we see people thrive. Have a look at our resources on the TLAP website.
Thanks very much, Gaynor. And we go to the next slide. Kate's with me. Kate Sibthorpe's with me.
Direct payments.
I say
Choice.
There we go. Kate Sibthorpe's with me this afternoon from the National Co-Production Advisory Group, and we work closely on lots of bits of work together. I guess the one thing I want to say before we sort of cut across to Kate is that whilst this is about direct payments, my experience working for Think Like That Personal and trying to do the work we do with the National Co-Production Advisory Group is that lots of the issues that we have for all the different approaches to personal budgets and in fact thinking about those changes that need to happen, lots of the things that need to happen and change are the same things as when we focus down and talk about direct payments. Yeah, okay, there's things about direct payments which might be about the money and systems to manage the money and helping people to employ, which is different to commissioning services. But actually, that whole sort of journey of assessment, which ends up with a set of outcomes, is the same for all types of personal budget. There's lots of scope for us to think about the commonality of things that we need to do just by focusing down and looking at how things are working around direct payments. So, Kate, do you want to come in and talk to us about the next slide?
Sure, yeah. Can we have the next slide, Gaynor? Thank you. So, Martin just asked me to say a bit about how this document came about, and I know there are people here who were involved with that and worked on the group with us. So this work came out of the COVID pandemic. And if you think back 2 years to when it all started, the health and care system was very much focused on residential care as a top priority, and that was closely followed by domiciliary care. And those of us who take direct payments and organise our own support didn't seem to feature at all in the minds of civil servants who were looking at things like access to PPE, furloughing staff, and later on the vaccination of health and care staff. So Think Local Act Personal, known as TLAP, brought together a group of people who organised their own care and support, some of their allies and support groups and organisations. And we worked with the Chief Social Worker's Office, who are based at the Department for Health and Social Care. And one of the first things we did was to help the government to write its COVID-19 guidance around direct payments. And that was really important and influential in that, you know, we went on from that to make sure that personal assistants were recognised as care workers. So they were basically not seen before we did that work, and to get them recognised as entitled to PPE and then to priority vaccination. But the conversations we had at that time highlighted a number of problems. So we didn't only have questions about how to manage through the pandemic. I think people were very clearly frustrated by the way some local authorities were delivering and auditing direct payments in ways that restricted their ability to organise support in ways that worked for them as individuals. And people weren't being given enough flexibility to be able to live the lives they wanted, which is what today is all about. So in response to this, about a year ago, TLAC published this report, Direct Payments, Working or Not Working. And I think one of the really good things to come out of this piece of work was that in that government guidance on direct payments, it was very clear, clearly said to local authorities that they needed to be more flexible about how people were using their direct payments. And when it was revised, that was very clearly left in. So that, you know, if you're looking to encourage your local authority to be more flexible, then you can point them in the direction of that guidance. So I'm going to hand back to Martin. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Kate. And so going on from that, so we had those conversations, we produced this document, and as part of the conversations we had with Chief Social Worker's Office, one of the group actually, person who takes direct payment, spotted there was a piece of work going off in the health part to look at what was termed reducing bureaucracy, cutting red tape, and could we do something similar? So we had a good think about that, and actually we thought it was a really great opportunity to start to engage some of the people. We had a lot of the things that came out of this. We had a big strong thing about how do we have a strong voice, and how do we, you know, have that strong voice with people in government that actually really need to listen. So we went about engaging some of those groups in this piece of work. So this was, I guess, direct payments working or not working really kind of describes from the point of view of people who draw down on care support, what needs to change. We really try to work with the system, if you like, people in the system, so the local government association representing councils broadly, the Association of Directors of Adult Social Services representing the leadership of social care, to really try and hear the next bit in terms of, okay, because I guess the argument we get back from those in the system is we'd love to do self-directed support, but it's really difficult to balance our budgets and do that. So that's why we have to be why we have to have these processes, and so we really wanted to engage the sector in those conversations. When I say this, yeah, those who kind of represent the sector, if you like. And what the other thing we wanted to do is we knew of places that were doing some really good stuff right in the middle of the pandemic to try and improve the direct payment offers. So we gathered some of those organisations together to share those experiences. And then the other thing that we thought was really important actually is to land this with the outcomes with council finance people and others in the system who are involved in that oversight of direct payments, the sort of stuff you experience in terms of letters about how you've used your direct payment, etc. So that was a little project that we got together, and together we thought about the things that needed attention. And can we have the next slide, please? And these are the things that we thought would needed attention. And you heard about those in the film. I'm not going to go on at length about these because we haven't got the time this afternoon. The document's out, you can have a read. And I guess really what we did was talk about the things that needed particular attention, and we've got in that document some of the things that together we agreed. This is us and leaders in this leaders of the system, the local government association and ADAS, the directors, saying that the sorts of things that need to happen. And you'll see in that document there is definitely an underscoring of this. You know, we do need systems and processes that enable people to be able to use the direct payments flexibly, and there shouldn't be oppressive monitoring systems for the way in which the money's been used. Really underscoring stuff that's in the Care Act, but we're saying it again. And what we want to do is make sure that those in the system are reassured with a document like this that those things are the case, and that the examples that we've got in the document show a way to achieve that. Really importantly, I guess a couple of things to focus on. The thing that people seem to be making a good start around was information and clear expectations. And well, there's some really good examples of that this afternoon, I think. And then the other thing that we've definitely seen in all these areas is a real appetite to do things co-productively and learn about that, and really from a starting point of this is messy and it's not straightforward for councils to do that. It should be, but our experience is it's not, and it's messy. But these places have really had a good go at that and are really trying to co-produce with their local people. A little bit about so can we go to the next slide, please, Gaynor? And so that's the processy bit. I guess what we saw was there's two. It seems to us that there's two real things, and I think again that came out really strong this morning. There are the processes which need to change, but there's the mindsets as well. I guess in terms of practice, we talk about the practice piffle, didn't we, this morning, and that really seems to me to be about the kind of culture change that we need to see to get to a place where self-directed support is experienced by everybody. So can we go to the next slide, please, Gaynor? So I've been very fortunate to be able to work with a group of people from NCAG, the National Co-Production Advisory Group, Isaac, Sally, Sam, let's see if we can do it. Isaac, Sally, Sam, Caroline, Jennifer, Marjorie. Have I missed anybody? There were 6 of us. There were 6 from NCAG. Yeah, I think I'm roughly. I missed. Anyway, it doesn't matter. I was really lucky. Yes.
Martin, sorry, can I just interrupt you? Some people are struggling with the closed captions because there's quite a lot of information. So can we slow our speaking down so that it feels too slow as you're saying it? Speaking as someone who I know who speaks quickly, but I think because it's a lot of information, the closed captions come up with a lot of it, and then of course it disappears. Does that make sense? So I'm asking you to speak a bit slower. That's a very long-winded way of saying speak a bit slower. Sorry, all of us.
Is Martin frozen now?
Was that the impact I had? I froze him. I'm sorry.
Bless him.
That's slow. We're waiting for the first word now.
Not quite that slow, Martin.
Okay, so actually Caroline's saying it's the audio as well. Okay, so I'm not sure if anybody else is having problems with the audio.
I don't know, but I know my screen's gone a bit funny.
Okay, right. So we seem to have lost Martin. Is he still in the room?
He's not. He'll be back in a sec.
Okay, no worries. No worries. That's fine. This is when you have to say, "Hold the line, caller," and
Sure.
someone starts singing.
We're going to pass to Kate. Kate will give us. Kate, do you want to talk about some of the work that we did in the group?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you want to go on to the next slide, because I suppose we don't know what's going to happen to Martin, whether he'll get back, and we don't want to lose too much time, do we? And I know Tim's there, so Tim can chip in as well. So I think Martin was just going to take everybody through what's inside the document. So TLAP and NCAG did some fab work with Essex County Council, and we also had some brilliant conversations with people who are here who are going to come and talk next, which will be, you know, with really practical examples of things that they've done that have made a difference. Do you want to look at the next slide, Tricia? Sorry, Gaynor. So yeah, these were obviously the key factors that came out of that work. And yeah, I mean, picking up on the point that direct payments, you know, it's not all about direct payments, it's about everybody having a good life regardless of how they get their social care. You know, it is in there that not everybody wants full control and empowerment. And I have to say, as you get older like me, you think, you know, you can't sustain doing that full control and management. You know, at some point we have to hand over to providers and so on. But yeah, the importance of peer support and co-production came out very, very strongly. And lots of new approaches like micro enterprises. You know, I think probably a lot of people have heard about micro enterprises from Community Catalysts and Somerset. And yeah, the power, I think, that that happens when people co-produce. So looking at things that have happened in places like Hammersmith, where, you know, they don't have any charging for social care for disabled people. So I think, Tricia, if we can't get Martin back, maybe we could go on. I think it's Leicester who are going to speak, aren't they?
It is. Leicester's going to speak first. So,
but obviously that document is, I think it's not quite ready on the TLAP website, but it will be there soon, and it'll be, you know, well worth a read.
Yeah, it's going to come out very, very soon.
Does Tim want to add anything? I don't know.
No, I think that's I don't want to add anything. I think you've covered it off. Yeah.
Okay.
Fantastic. Thank you. Right. Okay, fantastic. So Paul Martin's clearly had a breakdown of his internet. Something I said must have done that. So we've got in this first section of the work, which is that the bit that focuses on improving the process. So if we're thinking about the process of getting and managing a direct payment, not the whole gamut of self-directed support that we were talking about, but that's specific about direct payments, then we're going to hear from two places that have kind of tried to think about what they need to do that differently. So the first people we're going to hear from are folk from Leicestershire. So we've got Mo and we've got Lynn from Making It Real in Leicester. And I said Leicestershire, I'm really sorry, it's Leicester City. Shouldn't make that mistake.
That's
Mo and
right,
Lynn,
Tricia.
are you there?
We are. Thank you very much, and thank you for that fantastic introduction. Just before we start practically, Tricia, are we able to share the slides ourselves so we can access our notes?
Yes, of course. So would you like to unshare? Of course. If you unshare, Gaynor, as long as you're happy with the video and everything, if you're in full control, we relish people being in full control. That's great.
Absolutely. So we'll just get those up. And I really appreciate it if you can let us know if you're seeing them as you'd be expecting from your end.
So at the moment I'm seeing, there we go. Now we're seeing it as we'd expect. There you go.
Yep. Okay. Fantastic. Thank you. And thank you for the invite today. Mo and I are absolutely delighted that we've been invited to talk about what we've been doing in Leicester. So I'm Lynn Knights and I'm a practice lead working for adult social care in Leicester City.
And my name's Mo Pebbody. I'm from Leicester also, and I'm a person who draws on support with direct payments. So I'll just give us a little overbrief of where we're doing. There's a lot of things that we just possibly couldn't cover everything today, but just generally, we started working together in co-production to improve the way that direct payments are delivered in Leicester. And this evolved into many other aspects of adult social care. And Leicester have now signed up to Making It Real and Social Care Futures. And we all went right back to square one, to the drawing board, and we focused on making everything within adult social care about people. Everything would be people-centered support. To make this a reality, we had to change the culture and everything and the ethos within adult social care, and working on smashing down the barriers that had been placed either by process and procedures or by actions and words. And we changed many things, like the language used within social care. It's no longer things like service user. It's always people who draw on support, or just people. And throughout, everything we have done has been in co-production, that is between those drawing on support and the staff within Leicester Adult Social Care, and mainly the strength-based practice team. Staff have also adopted the I and we statements from Making It Real, and this has helped people reflect on how they themselves work and how they would feel if it was themselves or a family member. So thank you, Lynn. On to the next slide.
Thank you, Mo. And so, as Mo said, we've been concentrating on the practicalities, removing processes to help create the conditions for different practice to thrive. It's like Martin said earlier, that should be easy, but it isn't, and it's something that we need to keep working on. So the examples that we're really pleased about are all co-produced, and they include changes to our review. So we changed our review form from over 100 questions down into 3 main questions. And you can see those on the slide. They're what matters to you, what matters to others, and what outcomes do you want to achieve. And as a result, the review is a lot more conversational, and that gets to the bottom of what helps people live a good life instead of what we used to ask, which was over detailed, disproportionate, excessive information without meaning in people's lives in its entirety. And following on from that, we're now developing a self-review form, which will further assist a change in the power balance and empower people to really take control over the kinds of things that are working for them at the point of their review and might need to change. And that really help to set the foundation for good conversations about outcomes and how they can be achieved. We're also really pleased about our communication. So we've designed 2 new leaflets. One of those is in the resource Martin was talking about earlier, and you can see them on the right-hand side of the screen. The first explains what to expect from the new review. It goes out with a letter or email confirming the review date and time. And there's another for people having a planned review of their direct payments. We've had some really great feedback about these, so we can really see how they're making a difference. People appreciate the tone and the language, and they're helping to allay fears and set clear expectations and build trust in authentic change, because we heard very clearly that what we were doing was so very different from what we were doing before, that people would need time to be able to invest in that and plan for it for themselves. The final thing that we're really pleased about is our Making It Real group. So you can see a little description of that on the bottom left hand of the screen. So we signed up to Making It Real, and we're using that to guide us in everything that we do. And that has led to a new co-production group, which is helping us to get to a place of everyday co-production, really working together, sharing power, and making whatever changes that are needed. So we keep breaking down those barriers, we keep understanding what they are from the perspective of people, and we keep taking that back into colleagues within social care and moving it back out again as needed. And the group's in its infancy, but it meets every month. And it's really helping with the culture change, working together towards simple, practical examples of change and delivering those examples so it helps to build trust and relationships. So, for instance, it's currently working on an accessible structure chart or family tree, as somebody called it for an organisation. So it's clear to people drawing on our support who does what across the departments and how teams work together, making getting in touch easier and clearer. And we've made lots of practical changes, and there's some examples of these on screen. And like Mo said earlier, all of the changes have been made in partnership or in response to individual feedback about what could work better. And we keep coming back to that over and over again, because that's how we feel we're making it real. And we often find that once we truly have an opportunity for everyday co-production, we can identify solutions that work for everybody, internally too. And then we use that to build success stories that build on further change and keep the momentum going. So a couple of the key ones that have been really influential are proportionate changes. And this applies to lots of things: letters, forms. We've got a new smart direct payment agreement. So for instance, it only shows what's relevant, i.e. if you're choosing to have your support delivered via a personal assistant, it will give you some information on personal assistance and what's relevant in relation to the rules around those. And if you're not, it doesn't. And they're all designed to remove as far as possible those extra administrative burdens that can cause real stress, and ensuring that the messages we're communicating are clear, so it reduces the need for people to follow up. There's also clear contact details, so we're more approachable as a department, and it encourages easier conversations. So we started with changes with our finance letters and have since built in a system to ensure new finance letters will be co-produced, as well as an agreement that will review and co-produce changes to all existing financial correspondence. We've also started scheduling updates, so people don't have to chase things that happen every year, things like PA flu jabs. So every October, people needed to chase the authorisation letter for that. There's now a scheduled update that's planned in a timely way, creates equity of access, and again, removes the association, the stress associated with chasing up, and feels like a more inclusive response. But our current big one is inclusive meetings. So we have an internal direct payments meeting, and it had up until now just been council staff, but the invite is now going out via the Making It Real group to include people with lived experience, and that feels really positive. And in summary, in concentrating on everyday changes, we know that the things that we're doing are not perfect, but we're not waiting for that. We're making a start, keeping things going, keeping the momentum going. Thank you, Mo.
Sorry, I started talking and I was muted. So start again. Thank you. One thing I wanted to talk about, we've made a lot of changes, but one thing that I felt was really quite positive. We instigated changes within the commissioning department, and we worked and co-produced on the tender that goes out for new direct payment support services. The whole document was very old-fashioned and legalese, and it did not include many of the things that individuals that draw on support and direct payments really wanted. So we did a lot of work on that. We changed the terminology, we changed the language, and we changed the expectations within that document, and we put in a lot of things that people that draw on support want from their direct payment support service. So that in future, the provision that those who draw on support get what they are entitled to. One example is on the screen. We had a lot of feedback how difficult it was to find out information about one's own budget. It meant phoning or emailing the managed agent or the direct payment support service, and then waiting for a reply, which could take days. So now there's a clause in the tender of the requirement for the direct payment support service to deliver an app that the individual person will access to provide immediate and live information about their current situation. For example, how much holiday a specific PA has left. And I know that's a big thing that people get very problematic with. And really anything that relates to your budget that they are managing on your behalf, you'll be able to access and find it out. Of course, that app is going to be something very new for most people. And so there's a requirement that that's developed and in place within 12 months. But that app will be developed in co-production with those who draw on support, so that it will actually work how we want it to work. The tender also now requires the provision is delivered and will work in a strength-based practice way, enabling people to live the life that they want, achieve the goals and aspirations and the outcomes in their support plan. The direct support service must be proactive, people and family centred, work in a culture of trust and be approachable and very flexible. They must ensure that the principles and approach set out in the Making It Real framework are embedded throughout their delivery and culture of their service. And it must ensure that all of their staff are trained appropriately. All of the questions on the tender have been designed to answer very much with a person-led provision in mind and to follow the Making It Real ethos. And the process of the tender is now such that those who reply without this focus will actually be marked down and less likely to get the tender. And those of us who draw on support are also taking part in the assessment of these actual tenders. Many of the questions have been designed by us, and specific questions will be actually marked by us, and it will all feed back into the final decision of who is going to get the tender to be our direct support people. So the whole process has been very much in co-production, and the ideas and views of those who draw on support were actually taken very serious and led the project, and the whole project has resulted in a much better document for everybody concerned. Thank you. Can I have my next? Oh, thank you. Next slide. So what do we see as our challenges? Well, I think firstly, it's important to realise that this is a marathon and not a sprint. The whole process is going to take a long time, and it will move and alter as things develop. And that itself creates challenges. It is a huge change in culture, and many people are still fixated on following the rules of things that had always been done and things that they thought were rules. And we have also found a tendency from some quarters to say no, particularly just through custom and practice of thinking it's the rule, I can't do that, and partly through lack of confidence. And so actually many of these things are not rules. It's just bad custom and practice that has developed over time. And we are going to be breaking down all those barriers and making sure we do not invent new ones. The staff are being given permission in a way to be creative, to be flexible and to be human, to be confident, to engage and share ideas and practices, both good and bad. And we want to create solutions where yes is the default. We have developed a mandatory 2-day training program in co-production again with those who draw on support, and it is partly delivered by us too. They hear how things feel for us, and it really does seem to be making a difference. We are very aware of the need to be inclusive and representative, equal and diverse. And we really don't think we've quite got there yet, but we recognise that and we are working on it. We are aware that we are having difficulty engaging in different ethnic groups with those who draw on support. And so we are looking at engaging with different community and faith groups to try and get our message out and develop the whole process there. One thing that we are also seeing is a lack of understanding what co-production means. There is a tendency to consult, not co-produce, and a tendency to control, not support. So we're working on that, and we are looking at future training and ways of combating that. As I said at the beginning, this is a marathon, not a sprint. We need to keep the momentum going. We need to keep people engaged. And we realise that one way to do that is to get more people involved so that we can have specific project groups. I mean, it's a whole process that we're working on, and any ideas are always welcome. We've done a lot. We've got a lot to do. But the big thing is our ethos is to do it now. Get on with it and do it. We don't wait until it's perfect. We don't wait until we've passed a letter through a zillion different people. We think it's right, we get it done. We don't wait until it's perfect, else we'll never get it done. Get on with it. We can always change it. But we do know that whatever we're doing now, it's better than it was before. Thank you.
Thank you, Mo. So in summary, what you can see on screen now is what we're striving for. It's what local people and staff told us it would feel like when making it real was an everyday reality. And we're going to keep listening, making the practical changes and building on the difference that we've made, helping with the trust and relationships that we knew we needed to work on. And that in itself will value, while we value creativity and flexibility, it will continue to create the conditions for self-directed support to flourish. And we'll extend our membership for our Making It Real group. That's our next priority. So this, together with the focus on understanding challenges, the commitment to keep the momentum going, and we're really lucky, we've got really good leadership support, will make a real difference. And thank you.
That's brilliant.
Thanks,
I'm back,
guys.
Trish.
There we go. He's back. I was going to say, is he back? He's back.
I'm really sorry, but everybody lost my connection. That's brilliant. Thank you so much, Lynn. And thanks to those that covered the earlier slides. Brilliant. We're now going to hear from Shropshire. Tammy, are you with us, Tammy, and your team?
Yeah, hold on a second. There should be a few of us. You might not see me, I'm in a dark room. They're Katie, Rich, Beth and Chris. There's quite a few of us from Shropshire. Gaynor, I believe you've got our PowerPoint.
Yes,
if you're
I'll
able to share
slide.
that. And then we can just do an introduction of who we are. Thank you. So yeah, I'm Tammy Doyle. I'm one of the direct payment leads at Shropshire Council. And I've been in post a couple of years, and I job share with Beth. Beth, do you want to introduce yourself?
I'm not sure what else there is to say. Tammy and I both started. Yeah, I've had to move. I was around this morning and had to move because I felt like the ceiling was going to fall down on top of me. So I'm now in an office.
Whoops.
Chris?
Yeah, oh yeah, me. And then, so I'm Chris Roberts and I am Direct Payment Business Lead. Nice to see everyone. Thank you for the invite.
Katie? Kate, I know Katie's in the chat. Are you able to mute?
I'll
yourself?
unmute myself.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm brilliant at doing that, aren't I? I'm Katie Stone. I'm a direct payment recipient and co-chair on the direct payment board.
Thanks, Katie. And the lovely Rich is around as well somewhere, aren't you, Rich?
Yeah, hiya. I don't know about lovely, but my name is Rich. I've been in Shropshire since about August 2020. So I'm becoming involved in direct payments and supporting the team.
Excellent.
Thanks, Rich. So what you can see there on the front slide is our vision, which we co-produced. Actually took us quite a long time. As you say, co-production is messy and can take some time. But a lot of the messages that have come across today, some of them hopefully are reflected in our visions about being clear and simple. Flexible and creative is definitely been talked about a lot, and being open and honest from the beginning. So if we can, and the jigsaw puzzle, by the way, that was created. We had a working group just before sort of COVID kicked off, and we couldn't finish our working group, and it was with Mend the Gap, and it was a co-produced working group about direct payments and support planning. And at the end of that session, we got to make a tile about what we'd learned through the experience of taking part in that working group. And then we decided, because there were such fantastic tiles, to use that in our vision. So if we can have the next slide, please. I think it's Katie.
Yeah. So back in 2019, we had a 2-day conference with practitioners and carers and people that use direct payments to get some feedback, and we were supported by TLAP with that. And we used the feedback from that to kind of help us mould and understand a new approach and what we needed to as a basis to go forward. And from that, the direct payment board was set up, and a co-chair, which wasn't myself at the time, and the assistant director for adult social care took the chair role on that, which was a brilliant move, and it just proved to everyone that, you know, the local authority was as behind on it and saw it as such an important move, as well as people with lived experiences felt it was as valuable. As part of the day and the conferences that were held, we explaining the cat kind of thing, it wasn't a random picture. TLAP ran a exercise for us in which everyone in the room, and there's quite a large number of people, stood up, those that could stand up, and you were given, some people around the room were given balls of wool, and to show that everyone had something in common, practitioners, pit service users, balls of wool were passed around. So if you'd got a pet, the ball of wool was passed to somebody else with a pet, and it just basically showed that everyone was kind of linked up mutually, depending, you know, local authority, people, users, it didn't make any difference. Everyone was kind of linked. Direct payment support was originally managed externally. It was seemed as not quite managed how, as a local authority and as users felt, was the best way, and what would work best for us. As a result, the decision was made to move it back in-house. And yeah, from that as well, from the conferences, it was decided we had to rehumanize, it's not quite what the wording says, the system to make it more person-friendly and person-centered. And yeah, we learned different perspectives of direct payments. So yeah, next slide, please.
I think Beth's doing this one.
Yep.
Thank you. So from those 2 days back in October 2019. We learned a number of valuable lessons, and we're still learning through the work we're continuing to do. So the common themes that came out from a lot of people were around trust. I think there's been a lot of that still echoed today as well, around how to monitor the use of public funds, how to balance that with individual decision making, and how people felt about that. There was a feeling that there was a sort of criminalization around the use of public funds, and that wasn't enabling anyone to achieve a life they wanted to live or feel like they could live the life they wanted to live. The use of language, jargon, the tone of letters, particularly added to that feeling of criminalization, and the two-way communication, which a lot of our vision has come out of wanting to be as clear and straightforward as we can, and open to hearing back and hearing feedback. Eligibility was something that came out of the Mend the Gap project that we were part of, which was actually looking at support plans, but we went back to the root of what is eligibility. Some people felt like they were frauds because they were potentially receiving money that they weren't eligible for, and finding out what eligibility meant really gave them a firm foundation on, okay, well, this is for me, I'm entitled to this, and that was a sort of a leveler, really, that conversation, and some other bits of work came out of that. Yeah, I think that this has been talked about as well in terms of a list of needs or a list of options away from tick boxing and focusing on needs, onto a more holistic view of a person's life and what they want out of their life, and we're trying to reflect that in our paperwork and our processes too, although as a cultural change, I think we are in the movement of it and we haven't got to that goal yet. The feeling that direct payments should be an exciting option that are individual to each person, and a radical solution to the more constrained, this is all how it's always been done, these are your options, you can have this or this. Having more choice, more flexibility, and more creativity. So the words that we are trying to make sure we are hearing and embedding is flexibility, choice, and keeping things simple.
Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so as a result of all this feedback and learning, we wanted to get some groups together to start addressing these issues, and clearly we were involving the most important people, those people with lived experience. So those having a direct payment themselves, carers that might be having a direct payment, families supporting. We had personal assistants, advocates, various people, as well as obviously adult social care staff, finance staff, and some more senior staff. And together we looked at sort of the common themes in these 5 groups. Was we wanted to get a vision, which you saw at the beginning. We wanted to get a new direct payment policy to start it all off afresh. We wanted to look at the communications going out to people around direct payments, and of course the finance and the letters, which quite a few people have mentioned before. There was an ongoing issue about recruitment and retention of PAs, and around the support plans, which we mentioned, we joined the nationwide group Mend the Gap. Next slide, please. So we just wanted to talk about what we're proud of achieving, and the key point really is co-production, and that's something which is central to everything that we're doing really in direct payments. We've got the new vision. We've also got an agreement with clear expectations and a welcome pack, which we have some hiccups along the way. Nothing's perfect, which explains to people their role, what the council will be expected to do, what the person's expected to do within that welcome pack, and various other things that are there to help people. We've got a new policy that we sort of wanted to start off in terms of a more of an easy read and in line with our vision statements. At each point we wanted to keep going back to the point, is it clear, is it simple, is it honest? And this was in a working group, and within that policy, I think we need to sort of pass this message on further within ourselves at Shropshire Council, that we do have some flexibility built into it, in that people that have a direct payment, there's this idea of this kind of £100 flexibility, whereby sometimes life happens, as we all know. A PA might not turn up who might be supporting somebody to go to some sort of swimming club or something, and if the PA can't get them to the swimming club, then as an alternative you can go and purchase a taxi to get you there, and that's the idea of that sort of flexibility within it, to be more human. Life doesn't always fit perfectly into boxes. We've renewed and reviewed our finance letters with a friendly approach, but we will come back to that because there's been an issue recently around that. We've got our new guide to eligibility, which you can see on the left hand side of the screen, and we wanted to use sort of symbols. Again, this was down to some comments from a young lady who had a direct payment, about how important it is when sending information out to have those sort of guides. We have a regular newsletter that goes out and new website, and we put on a 2-week event. I think it was last year now, so over 12 months ago, in response to the workshops that were held in 2019. You said we did, because we wanted to feedback what was going on, what had occurred after we had listened to people, raise their head above the parapet and say what was working and not working. And on top of that, we did some extra learning for staff, to try and change the culture, just to show good examples of sort of creativity. And this was done in co-production, and some of the people here today were very involved in putting that together. So we tried to have a culture change. We're still working on it. We've got a new resource for staff, and we've been working as well on training for current staff, social work students and newly qualified social workers. Certainly Katie, I think you were involved as well with some of that work in helping putting a portfolio together for newly qualified social workers. So as much as possible, we do everything in co-production. And there's been an impact as well on university training for social work students. That came on the back of Mend the Gap, that they have now changed their training around direct payments. I think previously it used to be, I think it was half a day. They've now changed that and brought in people who have a direct payment to be part of that training. So next slide, please. Oh, I meant to say that young lady does have a direct payment. Yeah, and she helped put our welcome packs together. So next slide, please. We've also co-produced a new direct payment website. And like anything, it's still in progress. There will be things that will be changed on there, but this was in line with our vision about being clear and simple, so that people know where to go for information if they're considering a direct payment, or if they have a direct payment. There's information on there, as well as an area for personal assistance as well. Okay, next slide, please. I believe this sheep one is yours, Rich.
Yeah, so what we've discovered in the few years since we introduced it is that things aren't perfect, but we know where we want to be. So we've identified that there needs to be a wider group of people involved who have lived experience to represent everyone that Shropshire serves. And with that comes peaks and troughs of how much input there is, what co-production looks like. There's delays with finding out contributions. So we've identified in that we want to be able to offer that information within a time frame, but in some cases that hasn't been possible. The setup times, banking and recruitment, the recruitment is such a big part, especially with the wider care crisis, setting up new bank accounts for people who are being introduced to direct payments from the start. All of that needs to be streamlined so it's a smoother process. We've mentioned the current care crisis and the rates of pay, because that can differ between agencies as well. So exactly what is the direct payment being used for? And it has reduced, but some of the delays in financial checkups and assessments. So within our policy, we've identified what we would like the times to be met by, but people have been waiting outside of those times. And then we want to introduce a light touch approach to a financial checkup. So it's not ploughing through everything from the beginning. It's just looking at things that are important, say bank statements and that, and that's to reduce the process so it's easier for people who use direct payments, but also it makes the financial checkup process easier, and need to check back with changes made and with internal processes and letters. We've had an occasion where we've worked with finance at the previous days, and we've agreed some really good letters, but there's been occasions where that agreed format has changed, and maybe they've been sent out in the original format, or it hasn't been written in a way that's been supported. And then training for PAs needs to be more accessible. So anyone who wishes to be a PA or is already a PA can easily access training themselves, are able to know what's available, and can do it in the time that suits them.
Great. Thanks, Rich. Can we have the next slide? Yeah, I think it's Beth and Katie doing this.
Can I just say we're going to have to wrap up pretty soon, Tammy?
Yeah, so I think this is the last slide.
Great.
Okay, I'll go.
Go on, Katie.
Do you want me to go first? Yep. So at the moment, what we're doing, we're focusing on looking at putting together a personal assistant register to try and help with recruitment and retention of PAs, because we know at the moment in the current climate that's a very difficult thing to do. Beth, do you want to go next?
Yeah, so Rich has already mentioned the online training that we're hoping to have an offer of available for any PAs working in Shropshire. And also as part of the peaks and troughs of the work that we've done, the Direct Payment Board had a number of task and finish groups sitting under it for some big pieces of work that have now been completed. So we're now looking at what we want the Direct Payment Board to be used for and how it's going to work, how often it's going to meet, what the purpose of it is. So we're in a sort of a new phase of looking at that and how it's best going to be used.
So employment support options. So looking at, Beth, quickly support me on that one.
The employment support options, we're just looking at them, aren't they? It's just research that we're looking into it, what options there are and what's going to work best for people is in conversation with people who are using the support services from PAs. Peer support. I know that some of you are part of the Good Boss Network, aren't you? But we don't have any user-led organisations in Shropshire where peer support is happening. So that's something we want to see develop more. Ongoing direct payment education. I don't know what that means, Tammy. You might have to.
It's just continuing with that culture within the staff, within local universities, training newly qualified, as well as the wider community groups out there, like some of the work we've done speaking to the advocacy groups about whether it's the web page. So it's just continuing really on the work that's been done.
So I think ensuring the website web page is up to date. I think that's probably pretty self-explanatory in itself. Looking at working alongside professional health budgets, obviously that's looking at working alongside CCG, and looking at the transitional sides from direct payments to personal health budgets, and seeing at their strengths, their weaknesses, and seeing how to strengthen both sides. And I've got captions going across all age approach, that's it. All age approach, so looking at working with children's services as well to help with direct payments within children's services.
And so the next one's just questions, which we can do later.
We're done.
Tammy, that's brilliant. Thank you ever so much. Trish, we were going to have a session to get people to reflect on what they'd heard. Do you want to say anything about that? Because we had some two great presentations there.
Absolutely.
And I guess it's what it means for people.
Yeah, and I guess that's all we wanted to do was to get you. We've got just to take about, let's have a break about 25 past 2. We'll give you a proper 15-minute break. But I just wanted to, I'm not asking anybody else to write, well, apart from Julie Stanley. Julie Stanley's going to do some writing, but we just wanted to get you thinking about what you'd heard, either in the first, in this idea of this improving the process of getting and managing direct payment. Answers either by speaking or in the chat to any of these 3 questions, which is, what does it feel like from hearing those 2 experiences? What are you hearing that the key changes are all about? What's been different about the way that Leicester and Shropshire are trying to do things differently? What are the barriers that they're facing, that people are facing, either the system is facing or that individual people are facing, and what sorts of things have you heard seem to be helping. So please do pop some in the chat, but also pop your hand up if you've got something you'd like to share that that's really kind of made you think. And I'm going to just get my participants up so I can see people's hands. Right, we've got some hands up. So let's go for the first hand. Let's go for Luke.
I'm in my moment. I write
I'm sitting here, Market Bosworth, and it strikes me the difference between the two PowerPoints we've just seen.
Sorry, say that again. I didn't get that. I didn't hear. I'm sorry. Could you say that again?
Sorry. He was just saying that he's sitting in Market Bosworth now, and it strikes him the difference between the two PowerPoints that we've just seen in the two different areas.
So even in two different areas, it's different. Is that the observation, Luke?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No, absolutely. Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
Make me more like around where
it makes me wonder what it's like around the rest of the country.
And it's a fair observation to make. A fair observation to make. Definitely. Definitely. Kieran, you were next.
Yeah. In Wirral, the self-advocacy group I work with have been helping our council with some stuff around direct payments. And one of the things that's come out of that is that culture change is needed on a large scale. What the presentation from Leicester shows was that culture change is actually possible. It's not as if it's impossible to ask, you know?
No, absolutely. No, definitely not an impossible task at all. Definitely not. Thanks a lot, Kieran. And we've got, who is next? Will, you were next. Will Davis, you were next with your hand up.
Oh, hi. Yes, great presentations. It seems like there's been a lot of thought gone into that, and it was really good to see it. And I just wanted to raise a point that comes up in my area when I was supporting people with direct payments, and that's the time it takes and the speed things happen, which is from having the assessment and being told, you know, you've got an unmet need, we could offer a direct payment, or you could have a direct payment. From that to actually getting a PA or everything in place can take months. And by that time, months later, the person who might have been lined up originally to be your PA or whatever is no longer available because the period takes so long, or your needs can change in those months, and what you need at the end of the 3 or 4 month wait is different to what you needed at the start. So I think time, and it was put in there, but I think that having a fairly rapid process so that you can get things in place, you know, maybe in the same month that you try to get a direct payment would be good. So, but yeah, good, really interesting presentation.
Yeah, that idea of making it timely is yeah, absolutely really, really important, isn't it? Definitely. Thank you. And Mo, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to, it was interesting what Luke said, because I was reflecting on it, how many things that Shropshire found were issues, like trust and the cultural change, were exactly the same sort of things that we had to deal with. But I think in both cases, the one thing that's got to be crucial is it has to be led from the top at the council. If you've not got that willingness there to make that huge cultural change and to follow it through and keep with it, because as I said, it's a long process, that is key. And how you tackle that, if they're not on board, I'm not quite sure, but that is key to getting things done, I think. Thank you.
So that leadership, absolute
Yes.
leadership. And it sounds like you're talking about like what I would call dogged leadership, like someone who's like a dog with a bone and kind of doesn't give up, doesn't just go, oh, that's how we're doing it, and then go off and do something else, but who really does keep at it and make sure that things are, you know, sure that everybody's getting it. Yeah. Brilliant. Right. Any other hands up? That was you, Mo. Right. No more hands up. We've got loads of stuff coming through in the chat though, which Julie and I between us are just desperately trying to move across onto the board. So some of the things that are coming up in the chat in terms of the key changes are about mindset and cultural changes, about, we've heard the word co-production, and I'm getting a bit twitchy about the word co-production because we were using it a lot, but that idea, the principles are so important, aren't they? The idea that we listen, we think, we design, we create, we deliver, all of that in partnership with people with lived experience. So it's not just the listening bit, it's the making and the doing bit. For me, that actually we see people with lived experience actually running services and support and actually leading things, that bit of co-production. But what we've heard is really clear through both of those presentations is that all of this has been done in partnership with people. Some of the barriers, the low expectations, it still seems like direct payments or nothing. That's definitely true. Understanding the Mental Capacity Act or not is definitely a barrier. Yeah. The idea of not good enough to meet, they need to listen and not patronize people's voices. Yeah. Families and circles of support. Limited views of how direct payments can be used. Absolutely. It's not just about PAs. We still have that thing that direct payment is about buying people hours, and it could be so much more. And so some of the things you've really picked out about it helping are, it helps to show stories and show people how it works, show how you can do things differently. That leadership, directors with lived experience, senior leadership active in making change happen. Being open to change in the first place. So if you don't think that you need to change, then you're not going to change, are you? And my advice is to be more strategic in who you promote direct payments to. It doesn't always fit every family dynamic. And that's absolutely true. But the idea of everybody should know their personal budget, but not everybody wants to take that personal budget or as a direct payment. That's really, really clear. So we'll carry on. There's lots and lots of stuff there in the chat. We'll carry on getting that all collated. I'm just going to quickly flick through any other ones to put out. Listening.
I've got my hand up, Trish. Should I say something?
Sorry, I missed. There we go. Sorry, I can't.
It's okay. It's okay. It's just for me listening to those presentations. I think in some places the system feels so bad that you don't have any trust with your local authority, and it's how do you start when things are really, really bad. And I think, you know, both those councils have worked with. I mean, it happens to be TLAP. But, you know, Shropshire's also gone and worked with Mend the Gap and others. It doesn't have to be TLAP, it can be other people. But I think it can be really useful to get somebody in from outside who's a bit neutral to start facilitating conversations so that you can start to build trust. I think it can be really hard to just do it without that.
No, I think you're absolutely right, Kate. I think the idea of how do you start when it feels really, 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 really bad and nobody seems to know what to do, then there's something about, you know, what you and I know really well, which is gathering a bunch of people around you so you're not on your own. So maybe it's that idea of starting together with a small group of people and trying to go and get a conversation with a director or assistant director and just say, you know, can we work with you on this? There's something about local people offering, and Anna, I know how this started in Leicestershire, you know, the idea of local people reaching out and saying, we'd like to help you with this. Will you work together with us on it? So I'm making some changes, but I think it's a good question for every local area to ask is, hold a second, if we're not doing this great, then actually, how can we start doing something differently? Definitely. So I think that's absolutely brilliant. I'm going to stop sharing for a moment. Julie, I'll happily let you carry on populating. I'm going to stop sharing. Okay. So, so that's kind of the end of this first section. We're going to have a break now for 15 minutes.
Yeah, so we've got two more examples for you. And when I was thinking about who we might to bring along, I noticed that we got, it all seems to be about direct payments, or direct payments are the only option. Well, great news for you, because we've got a great example of a place that has really, really done a great job of getting, I think they've done a great job of getting individual service funds in place. And in a sense, that's just a thing. It's another way personal budgets can be taken. They're not very typical at all. It's just a simple, It's just, in a sense, it's just as simple as letting providers look after the money. So the person lets the person asks the council to let a provider look after the money, and for the provider to work out in detail, day to day, how they're going to use that money. I'm not going to say any more because Liz has probably got a good definition of that anyway. I'm really pleased to introduce you to Elizabeth Thieves from Bexley and a team from Bexley. So over to you, Liz.
Thank you, Martin, and thank you for the invite today. Could I just check, is Mark Hooper on the call? Mark?
I don't think he is, unless he is on the call.
I am here.
Yeah.
I am here.
Oh, okay.
Your name's not there, Mark. That's all. There we go.
Perfect. Are you another gainer, are you, today, Mark?
Everyone's
Okay.
gainer today.
Okay, so thank you very much for inviting us. We've come along today to tell you a little bit about individual service funds, which, as Martin's already outlined, is a form of a direct payment. Mark Hooper, who will come straight after me, is a provider who's on our individual service fund framework, and one of the people that use his services has agreed to do a little video for us as well, so you can see them in action. So could I have the next slide, please? So I'm sorry this looks like a lot of words, but I wanted to really try and describe the journey that we'd gone on in Bexley. So direct payments obviously are our fundamental offer to people, but we wanted an individual service fund, which is just another way of deploying that personal budget. So the personal budget is then held by the provider, and the most important thing here is that provider is then chosen by the person using the service. So that also the person can just use flexibly how they want to use the monies in line with the person's outcomes. So there's a contract for flexible support, which allows that person to adjust that support as needed. And again, it's another way of the council exiting and allowing people to manage their own lives. In Bexley, we started our journey by looking at an individual service fund for those we support with a learning disability. So we started in Bexley in 2017. We actually managed to get our first framework published and established in 2019. And our first individual service funds were in January 2020. The approach that we have is available to all people now with learning disabilities and gives us a way of moving from inflexible block funded arrangements for accommodation support. So it was quite interesting in our group 11, we were talking about how tenders put the council in control of who would provide your services for you. So this is just another mechanism of allowing the person to choose that support provider. I know people have talked about co-production a lot today, but we genuinely entered into a co-produced state in 2017 before we actually developed the offer at all. It was well attended by carers, by people with a learning disability, by our providers, by social work staff, and they literally have contributed to the offer that we've designed. That offer and a lot of the work that was done by carers, providers, and people with a learning disability actually forms part of our specification. So we've stayed true to the word that it's a co-produced offer. We have had considerable help from TLAP, who have given us best practice links all the way through. So one of the most things that was important to start, the Care Act obviously requires people to be informed of their personal budget. And I think previous to this, we'd always allocated a direct payment to match a block contract cost. So what we did is we actually had a resource allocation system that was purely for people with a learning disability. So we were able to give people a realistic indicative budget, and then they could decide from that budget how they wanted to spend the monies. So technically this learning disability RAS was switched on in September 2018. We have an active oversight group for that, which makes sure that the monies that's being made available to people does keep up with changes. I mean, for instance, during COVID, we've had difficulties, like I think it was Shropshire mentioned, and we've needed to look at that. And we have a really good training program and guidance in place for our social work team. Could I have the second slide, please? Please say if I'm going too fast. Okay. So what we've tried, probably the thing that we're the proudest of is that we've managed to create a contract which satisfies both our procurement and legal requirements. Now, these requirements are around the fact that a local authority, when it transfers funds to a provider, it has to have a contract in place. What we did is we've managed to design a contract which does fulfill all of that, but it still allows the person who wishes to have service to actually choose their provider. We've spoken about that. We've developed a resource allocation system. We've got good and true care costs for people so that it's a meaningful offer of a budget. We've had a pilot system. We tested it end to end to make sure that what we had in place would work. Again, in thanks to TLAP, we've had a Making It Real event, which was very well received by our social workers, counsellors, council staff. We have training for social care staff to understand that offer, and then training for social care staff so that they can actually make sure that the budget they're allocating somebody is correctly calculated. Could I have the next slide, please? So again, I won't labour the point, but we are the most proud of the contract we've managed to put in place. The information, our providers have produced easy read information for people to make choices. And one of our providers who are on our framework, they ran a complete information event for families and stakeholders. The providers have been busy training the staff on the changes needed to work in a more flexible and creative way. And they have provided to us the practical ways for working and joined our learning events. One provider has been quite proactive in bringing in and looking at different assistive technology so it could fade some of the paid support and allow people to spend their budget differently. We have regular discussions about the approach through our project meetings, and that brought us to quite creative solutions for people. And again, the providers have risen to the challenge and implemented individual accounting so that no matter if you live within a communal home that you share with other people, your budget is still your budget. The offer then moved across, really we started with looking at block contracts and it's moved over to those living in the community. The choice of having that control without the management of a direct payment has become the delivery mechanism for those people with a learning disability. I can't tell you how proud we are but the popularity has grown to such an extent that we are currently having to go out to tender for a new framework. And that's because the demand for the product, for wanting to have that choice and control over your own life, has now outgrown the supply that we started with. So whilst we're very, very pleased, we're having to scurry around and re-tender so that we can bring more providers on board. Can I have the next slide, please? So I wanted this very much to be a warts and all, and share some of the difficulties we've had as well, because it has been a difficult approach to actually design so that it works for everybody. So these are giving you some of the sort of downsides to it. So we need to keep looking at the move to the strength-based just enough support. Some of the proposals that we received from providers were still very traditionally focused on, well, you need a night support and you need so many hours, which is not what this is about. So the new approaches ultimately needed changes in staff rotas, recruitment, community links, diversity and collaboration. That's still ongoing, it still remains ongoing, but I'm pleased to say it has progressed somewhat. The other thing that we did find was that we found that the managing directors of providers were incredibly on board with this and wanted very much to offer this to those that they supported. But when we found that when the plans were put in place with the local managers, there was a much more risk-averse approach from those frontline managers. So it did take us quite a little while of liaising with people to bring everybody to that point. I guess the Bexley Council, in all honesty, we started with a wonderful team of a team manager and seniors and care workers, social care workers, so that all the knowledge would be embedded. We put in all the required training to embed the offer. One of the things that we found, however, was that we had a turnover of social care staff probably faster than we'd anticipated, which has meant that we've had to continue with training programs. We still don't feel that we are totally embedded as we would want to be. We did then experience quite a few complexities and delays due to the culture protection work, and where we were trying to bring people from a residential home into a supported living. So, we wouldn't want any working age adult to live in a residential home. The culture protection work was so complex that did delay some of the ISFs being implemented. And I think for local authorities out there, you have to be aware that commissioning has to have a hands-on approach and to keep the work on track. Normally, as a commissioner, I would commission a service and then it would be over to the operational staff to implement that. For this particular project, it's needed a sustained commissioner approach to make sure that happens and continues to happen, and it doesn't get lost every time you have a change of service managers and social workers. So my last slide, please. What we want to do is, because we are very pleased with the offer and we know that demand is outstripping supply now, we want to look at developing a resource allocation for the other people we support. So we can again move away, including for older people with a physical disability, we can move away from, a service block cost and give people that reality of a budget. And obviously that's what we're saying when we're saying that's the offer of an individual service fund to other people. We have a continued training for social care staff to ensure this offer is understood and promoted. And we've kindly had an offer from Self-Directed Futures. We wanted to formally evaluate how people's lives have changed as we get a year down the line from people having had an individual service fund. So thank you, that's from me, and I would welcome any questions. But I would like to introduce, I'll let him introduce himself, but if Mark could come on, and he has got a little video for you as well.
Hi there, I'm Mark Hooper from Ambient, one of the providers on the framework in Bex. I'm not saying Ambient is completely cracked individual service funds, but we're certainly an organisation that wants to learn and willing to make mistakes. But things we've tried, it's important that we listen to people, families and the people we support and the local authority about what they wanted. It was important to build those relationships of trust. particularly with the people we support and their families. But in terms of local authority, it's having that trust that in terms of things change, that the individual budgets could be adapted. So Peter moved to individual service funds, and we've been promoting that, and nearly all our supported living services that used to be part of a kind of block or are on individual service funds now. It took a lot of time to explain the individual service funds to families and the ISS, and we worked closely with Bexley to try and make that happen. And we produced our own films and leaflets in as best communicating forms as possible, many different forms as possible, to help people understand how personal budgets or individual service funds work. It's actually been a very big success for us, but we're actually rolling it out in numbers of different types of services, like our respite services now, and now a lot of them, about 60% of them in Bexley, are now by individual service funds. We've learned it was important to train our staff and to monitor our staff so they don't move into real kind of service land stuff, where the staff take control and not the people we're supporting. And we meet with the people we support on a regular basis to make sure they're fully involved in recruiting their staff, identifying their staff, helping in staff's one-to-ones and development, and things like passing their probation. So we'll move on to things that we have learned. We've learned that we need to improve our systems within the organisation. So personalised recruitment is extremely challenging at the moment, but I think making the job adverts more suited to the individual and the individual's processes has actually helped us recruit better. We've had to develop our record keeping. So when we're talking about Peter being able to bank hours, for example, to go to Liverpool, that we created systems with our finance department that enabled that to happen, and that he knew how many hours that he was banking each week, or at a moment he asked, because we now keep that on a system which he can access. As I said, it's important to have that joined up approach with the local authority. Sometimes people on individual service funds need less hours, and at other points they need more hours. Someone we were supporting on the service fund had to have an operation in hospital, and he'd actually banked a few hours, which required him a lot more support when he came out of hospital and to recover. So we negotiated with the local authority that may need to be a little bit more support for him for a short period of time. So that trust, that flexibility was really, really important to have. The key, which is often heard today, is about flexibility and how we deliver our services. And we've really made that a real part of our culture in terms of the way we work with our support staff and the people we support. So move on to the next slide is what we're pleased about. Well, it's made us be more creative in the way we deliver our services. And I think as a result of that, we are growing a range of different packages that we offer people. And we shape those individual packages to the individual person, and that we can really demonstrate that people are a lot happier, have got a lot more control and choice over their lives, and improve the quality of their lives. We felt it was important we had a pool of workers, and the way we recruit and identify those workers is we really try and identify the interests that an individual has. And we created a pool of workers where we gathered all the information about what's actually important, what the person who we employ like to do. Like if people like going swimming, I could never get my head around why people like going swimming, but none of the staff they supported wanted to go swimming. So I've never kind of worked that one out, but we've made that part of the JD. What are we concerned about going forward? is getting it right for the hours, making sure that it is right, making sure that there continues to be that kind of flexibility when needed. That actually someone's reducing their hours is a success and not seen as something that the provider loses. One of the main challenges within the sector is the rate that we get for the individual service funds, because it's becoming increasingly harder and harder to recruit people. And so we need to be thinking about the pay that we offer our staff because as I said, the market is really, in terms of recruitment, has really changed in the last 12 months. And we are actually finding that a lot harder to find the right people with the right approach to deliver these types of services. I think that's all what we want to continue to do moving forward, is to continue to learn, to continue to promote individual service funds and give control to the people we're supporting, and promote with our staff the importance of a personalised approach, and that services don't fall into what I call service land based around the staff, more around the individual. I think that's really all I wanted to say today.
Thanks, Mark and Elise. We've got lots in the chat. So this session is about thinking about changes in practice and actually changes in culture. So you're very much on a journey, I think, Elizabeth, aren't you, in terms of that shifting culture. And some things have got absolutely going really, really well, and there's stuff to work on. Is that a fair reflection?
Absolutely. It's been
Thanks.
A complete journey.
Yeah, thank you very much, Elizabeth. We're going to hear from Hammersmith and Fulham. Rules who work in Hammersmith and Fulham. So have we got Charlotte on the line?
Hello, I'm here.
Hello, Charlotte. So our last example today is from Rules, which is I'm sure Charlotte will talk to you and let you know what Rules is and what you're doing in Hammersmith and Fulham.
Absolutely. I'm just going to share my screen. Bear with me. I always seem to take far too long doing this. You would think I'd know what I was doing by now, but apparently not.
That's worked really well.
Good. Just before I start, I did ask one of our residents in Hammersmith and Fulham to come along today, but I know she was having some trouble logging into the meeting. Just want to check, Shirley, did you manage to log in?
Yes, just getting used to.
Amazing. Thanks, Shirley. Right, so I'm going to start by going through the presentation, and then I'll just ask Shirley to have a few words nearer the end. So hi everybody, my name's Charlotte, and I'm going to be speaking to you today about self-directed support in Hammersmith and Fulham, specifically what's been implemented, what we've learned, what has worked, and also our concerns and what work still needs to be done, because nothing is perfect. Before I start, Martin has already said I work for Rules, but I also work for AOD. So I think it's just important that you know who I am and why I'm here talking to you today. So I lead the direct payment support services in both Richmond and in Hammersmith and Fulham. So I work for a user-led organisation called Rules, which is based in Richmond. And Rules was started to campaign for choice, control and independence for residents through the use of direct payments. So ensuring residents are independent is at the forefront of all the work we do at Rules, and we make sure that it's at the forefront of the work we do with our partners and our partner organisations. So following an independent review of the services in Hammersmith and Fulham, it was quite clear that a direct payment support service external to the council was really needed. And this is where Rules stepped in to support action on disability with this. So Hammersmith and Fulham Council place a massive importance on co-production. Not only with organisations and facets within the council, but also with local residents. It really feels like it's at the forefront of any and all decisions made, and make sure that these decisions are influenced by Hammersmith and Fulham as a whole. One fantastic example of this is the steering group. So a place not only for council institutions to discuss and implement change, but also for residents to have a real input and bring forward their concerns. So in fact, residents lead the steering group. So they decide on the topics that will be covered and can ask council officers the questions they want to be answered. So of course, resident engagement is a big part of this and something that should really be highlighted. From experience, I do think the way in which residents are encouraged to be a part of the council's decisions in Hammersmith and Fulham is unique, and it really supports the ideals of self-directed support. There's a real community feel in ensuring residents attend groups, presentations, events, and the support service is on hand to make sure all communications are easily accessible for residents. We bring the residents along with us, sometimes with a few hiccups, and that all information that comes from these meetings are available in any format that is needed. One other the biggest change really in Hammersmith and Fulham recently has been the introduction of the direct payment support service. Personally, I feel it's a great way to ensure direct payment recipients have true choice and control over their support, but I think I might be biased. We're on hand to offer advice and training, not only to residents, but also to the local authority. We support residents who have a direct payment from start to finish. We support with recruitment, setting up of contracts, anything that needs to be done in terms of employment or engaging an agency. And we really have supported residents and council workers to think about how direct payments can be used innovatively to promote independence. This was especially apparent during COVID-19 when the usual PA support could have been quite harmful to residents. So we were really working with social workers during this time to come up with other ways of meeting outcomes. Part of our direct payment support service is the peer group. This is a safe space for direct payment recipients to attend with comments and queries relating to direct payments or just care in general. Like the steering group, the peer group is led by residents, and we are on hand to answer queries as best we can. If we can't, we inquire and we let members know next time. So what have we learned so far? For me, I think the biggest thing I've learned since working in Hammersmith and Fulham is how important co-production is. And it really should continue to be a part of how decisions are made. Although the steering group's in its early stages, I really do think it's going to be a great way of supporting this and making sure that residents in Hammersmith and Fulham continue to be engaged and influence the decisions being made about the things that affect them. The direct payment support service has been well received so far, and of course is led by the idea of self-directed support. It's at the forefront of any advice and any training that we provide, and is the reason behind the facilitation of the peer group. So I've been working in Hammersmith and Fulham since August, so not that long, but I can already see so many positive influences relating to co-production and the support service. As I've already mentioned, the emphasis placed on co-production really is evident in Hammersmith and Fulham. Again, the best and biggest example of this is the steering group, where council officers, the support service and residents have a place to come together to discuss concerns and ensure residents are involved in the changes to the way things are run. Leading on from this is obviously resident engagement. I really do feel there's a high level of resident engagement in Hammersmith and Fulham. There's a want from residents to be involved and a real welcome approach from the local authority for them to be involved. We as a support service are contacted weekly for residents to support the council, to really engage residents in any social care week or presentation or event that they're running, which is fantastic. So leading the support service, I've seen firsthand how we have influenced the ideals of self-directed support within direct payments. I've found a real interest and curiosity from social workers when we're discussing the flexible use of direct payments. And we really see that reflected in the referrals that come across to us, which have such a variety of uses for that direct payment. So from using a PA or agency support to get out and about in the community, to even a one-off payment for college classes. So it's really taking direct payments away from the more classic realms of care and seeing how it can be used to meet anybody's outcome and really give the resident the autonomy to choose how they want to be supported. So we also feel that social workers are involving residents in their support planning. And I think they are starting to listen when we tell them it's okay to think outside the box. We talk a lot about the person-centered approach within direct payments. So starting with the resident, building support around them, as opposed to focusing on what's readily available and trying to make them fit into that. So when speaking about direct payments in Hammersmith and Fulham, we can see that this is really being followed. Of course, we're on hand to discuss this with residents as well, and with social workers, so that we can all work together to find a way of meeting those outcomes that suits everybody best. As a support service, we always support residents to be as independent as possible. One real example of this is how we support residents to be an employer and to pay their own staff. So we support with recruitment as much or as little as residents want us to. We can do everything for them. We can signpost. We support with the initial setup of employers, and we make sure all paperwork is completed correctly. A lot of the time, the residents will go away and do that themselves next time round. So we really spend a lot of time in ensuring people know exactly what the paperwork is and why they're doing it, and also where they can get it from. We don't have an internal payroll service at AOD, so we do support people in finding the right payroll company. And of course, the payroll company holds all this paperwork for them. So we also support residents to continue to stay up to date with employment legislation and making sure that they're the best employer they can be via regular training sessions. And of course, the support service is on hand throughout the employment, throughout the time the resident has a direct payment, to answer any questions that might come up. So another way we support residents is through the facilitation of a peer group. These fortnightly meetings ensure residents have a place to come to discuss anything they wish with like-minded people. Although the support service is on hand to answer any queries and deliver information sessions where requested, these sessions are led by the residents that attend. So we're also on hand to liaise with the council when needed and make sure that we can feed back to the group. We can also organise guest speakers, and we've had a couple of really good ones in the past. So like I said before, nothing is ever perfect, as much as we try, and we do have some concerns about what's being implemented. Before I go more into it, these concerns are known, and we are working with Hammersmith and Fulham Council very closely to get this rectified as quickly and as best as possible. So the first one, co-production. Co-production is fantastic, but involving as many people as we can does lead to delays. These delays are sometimes necessary, but obviously could have been avoided had less people been involved. There's very little that can be done in this instance, but it is, in my opinion, the steering group's going to be key here. So allowing these groups to come together and discuss changes without relying on email and finding times to meet. The direct payment support service has been operating for some time now, before I started in August. And we do still seem to face some of the same barriers as when we first started. I think this is due to a lack of communication and communication mishaps with the council, but we have really started to overcome this. I guess from my point of view, I have a great level of communication with the council. I never have to wait too long for an answer anyway. And we have also been really heavily involved with changes to the direct payment processes within the council. So I'm pretty optimistic that once these processes have been streamlined and changed, it's going to change everything for us. So the support service also offers training for social workers each quarter on direct payments and how these can be used. So I do a 1 hour, 4 weekly session. One of these sessions is focused entirely about using direct payments flexibly. And this one is always really well attended, and we have some really good discussions about how direct payments can be used to meet people's outcomes. We are also working with various teams within the council to offer this training to them individually so that we can tailor the information we're giving them. So tailoring it for the reviews team or the sensory team, etc. We also offer training to residents, employing staff, as I said earlier, so we can support them in staying up to date with legislation. The peer group, although attended each week, does tend to be the same residents again and again. Although this has really helped in forming relationships within the peer group, I think Shirley will agree with me, there is a real need for new members to attend. So in an attempt to boost engagement, we promoted the peer group alongside the council's quarterly monitoring, and we're going to continue to do this. We've also asked social workers to really try and promote it when speaking to residents about direct payments, both at the start and at review. Again, I do think the changes to the internal processes within the council will support in promoting the peer group. So as more and more residents are referred over to our support service, we can speak to them about membership, and we're very good at advertising ourselves. Although there's a high level of need from the local authority to have residents involved, this can be really daunting. And the level of commitment is not something all residents can agree to. And actually taking time out of their day can be really difficult. Speaking to groups of people like I'm doing today is terrifying when you're not used to doing it day by day. And even when I speak to everybody, I speak a little bit fast. So I do feel that more work needs to be done between the local authority and the direct payment support service in really promoting resident engagement and allowing residents to feel empowered and to have the confidence to have a voice. So on this note, I would like to introduce you again to Shirley, a resident in Hammersmith and Fulham who has been able to take some time out of her day to come and speak to you today about her experience using direct payments in Hammersmith and Fulham. So thank you so much, Shirley.
No problem. Hi, everybody. My name's Shirley. Just give you a little bit of background. I'll try not to be too long. I've been caring for my mum for, I think it's over 12 years now. And I live with her, care for her 24/7. When she came home, excuse me, when she came home, she was on commission care, Hammersmith and Fulham Council, which was all good and everything. And she was assigned a social worker. Everything started to go well, okay, until carers started coming late. I missed out a bit. Because of my mum's condition, she needed a double up care. So that's 2 carers. So you get one carer that would turn up, the other one wouldn't turn up, which means I would have to help the other carer. This used to annoy me a lot. Some carers are good, some are not so good. And when I called the council, because they were paying directly, I spoke to somebody, they said they get back to me. They didn't get back to me. Sometimes they do, they don't. And that frustrated even more. So initially, when my mum came home, her assigned social worker did say to me, to be fair, direct payment is available. But because I was dealing with so much and my mum came home, I refused. I thought, no, I can't be dealing with this, employers, this and all that, responsibilities and all that, you know, because I had a lot going on with my mum. So after about 8 months or so, enough was enough. Somebody reminded me, what about direct payments? I goes, yes, I'm going to do that. And at that time, Hammersmith and Fulham, they had the contract to deal with that. So there was support there. So I went to see somebody. They set me up, my mum and everything. I manage her direct payments now. And I've been managing it for the past, how long? Oh, it's over 8 years now. And the difference is I'm able to be more flexible. So I employ 2 PAs at the moment, and I kept the agency because there's a good carer there. So it's you don't have to stay with an agency if you don't want to. It's up to you. You could just have 1 carer, 2 carers. And how it made a difference, not for me, well, only a little bit, but more so for my mother. When it was commission care, she was getting different carers all the time, and my mother was erratic, very erratic. So, but now it's consistent because I manage everything from payroll. If I have any issues, I could ring up payroll and say, look, I'm stuck here. What do I do next? You know, they work out everything. They send the pay slips. All I have to do is just submit the hours the PA does. With the agency, it's straightforward because they just send me the invoice. I pay them. As for the payroll company, when they send the pay slips, I'll just give it to the PAs, and then they will send me the invoice for the tax and insurance and the nest pension for me to pay, which I do every month. But if I'm stuck, the key is for me, support. When there is no support, no one's not going to go for direct payment. But for some people, commission care works for some, but for me, no. And the worst thing, I just want to put this bit in, the worst thing for me when I was receiving commission care, when people wasn't turning up and I was stuck and I was doing my mother myself, attending to her myself, the agency was still getting paid. So all in all, it's right now, it's working for me just right. I'm so happy, you know, so happy. But at the beginning, it was too much for me because I had a lot on my plate. But because of the issues that I was having, you know, with the carers messing me about every time, playing games. So that is my little short story, and I hope it does help.
Thank you very much, Shirley, and thank you, Charlotte.
Thanks, Martin.
Can we end the slides? Oh, sorry, that's you, Charlotte, into this time. Sorry, I was looking to, thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, two places where you're working to change the culture of workers in the place, and at the top bottom really is a real journey. I mean, can I just ask you, Charlotte, on that? Just you know, in terms of the something I've picked up in other places. You know, it does seem to be a thing that we need to constantly remind all those people in the system of what direct payments is all about, its purpose, and you know, and remembering about flexibility. We're getting lots of nods from Charlotte there. Yeah, you want to say anything on that? Either Shirley or Charlotte.
It's a constant reminder, I think, because people that work within the council don't just work with direct payments. You know, social workers, I think at the moment, are getting up to 30, 35 cases at any one time, and they're speaking to people about commission services, direct payments, residential, you know, lots of different things. They do just need reminding about the process. The direct payment process is not simple. There's a lot of paperwork that comes across with it. There's a lot of do's, a lot of don'ts, but you know, that's where we're really trying our hardest to implement that training, those refresher sessions. Not the easiest sentence to say. Yeah. But just try and speak to them as much as possible. Yeah. One thing I didn't mention actually is I have a fortnightly meeting with the team managers in Hammersmith and Fulham, specifically about direct payments. And I think that's really starting to have an impact as well.
And can I just ask Shirley, are you experiencing that in terms of the way the people, the social workers in this, not necessarily Charlotte and the support, but the social workers, when you interact with people from the council, are you seeing a difference? A good positive, in terms of a good positive support of what you want to do.
I have to be fair, I haven't had much interactions with the social workers because I'm on DP. Do you understand? You know, so this is a great thing for me. Do you understand? So they get less hassle from people receiving. Well, I'm only speaking for myself, getting commission care, because when you have commission care and you have problem with the agency, you ring up the agency, you're not getting help from the agency. Who are you going to call? The council, the social workers. So they're lost. There could be a duty because my mum's not assigned a social worker. So when it's duty, that is an issue because they may not be in the next day. Then they have to pass on the message to the next person, and it's all new again. So I haven't had much interaction with them, which I'm comfortable with.
Oh, I think that's a really key point. Thank you very much. Okay, Trish, back to you. So 2 more cases in terms of things that happen in councils and
Okay,
positive
fair
change.
enough, fair enough. So again, there's been I just wanted to note there's been lots and lots of stuff in the chat about language and things like that. And one of the things that we're really passionate about at Social Care Future is challenging the language that you use around people and making sure that, which is why we started with that video this morning about the service land speak. So one of the things that we're really trying to do is to challenge each other about the language that we use with and about people and make sure it's not what we call service land speak. So I think that's a really good important thing to kind of remember as we're going on, so that we are talking about people all the time and not getting sucked into some of the language that the system likes us to use, like transition, or all those made up words that we like to use. So just thinking again, reflecting about what you've heard, and I'm going to share my screen. In terms of, from both of those presentations, from about workers doing things in a better way, again, use the chat or pop your hand up and just your observations about what you think the kind of the key change is all about and the barriers and what seems to be helping. So I'm just going to, hold a second, I'm playing with my screen so I can just see people and I can't see participants, then I can see hands. Brilliant. Anna, your hand up.
Yeah, thanks for the presentations, and I think it's a journey, isn't it? So it's taking a step forward from where we were before, but then also acknowledging that we're kind of not at the end point yet. And I guess for me, there's questions around, I think Charlotte, you said about like helping people with all the red tape and things like that the council put on people. And I suppose I'm now thinking, well, actually, should we be challenging that? Like, why do they put that red tape on people, and how can we, and where does the power lie? Because it still feels a bit like, yes, it's better than the power of being with the council, but have we just created a new structure, and actually are disabled people and older people and people actually like in control of, like, I suppose I want to say, let's move it from this to like the next step, which would be actually like truly user-led rather than just kind of on steering groups. You do what I mean? So it's like a step towards that vision, but it's just my view. I don't know what, that's not really a question, but thanks.
No, it's a good observation though. I think that's a really good observation that we need to be, I think what I'm hearing you say is that we've got to, as well as about co-production, is so much more bigger and more nuanced than the traditional structures that we've often used, like focus groups, isn't it, and steering groups. And that people have to be in lots of different positions to be able to challenge how things are working now, rather than just saying the direct payments process is complicated. Well, why is it complicated? It doesn't have to be complicated, does it? We could make it uncomplicated. But thank you. Martin Routledge. Martin, are you there?
Sorry, I'm trying to speak while I'm on mute.
Yeah, it doesn't work, you know.
I just wanted to say something about the ISF side of this. I put in the chat that I'm a trustee of a smallish support organisation for people with learning disabilities, people where I live. And we just, the people supported by that agency have just gone through the most awful experience where the council has decided to retender all its services in the middle of a pandemic. And it just kind of, I've been involved in some of these retendering exercises before, and I kind of theoretically see why councils do it, but the experience of it, what it's saying to people is that if you come into the use of council services, we effectively own you. We decide who supports you, and if we decide that we're going to move you from one support provider to another, that's up to us. And I think often councils don't think, oh well, what's the problem? Because the staff often stay with the new support provider. So what's the difference, kind of thing? And the difference is immense. And we've had people in a terrible state over these last few weeks as a result of this experience in the middle of a blooming pandemic. And one thing that's immediately happening is that because the ISF option is available in that place, and because also people can take direct payments at the same level as providers are paid same hourly level. People are simply just voting with their feet, and people really have to have the ability to do that, don't they? So I think not everybody wants to take a direct payment. So I think ISFs are a really good thing to happen. I think they don't always operate, you know, in the way that we would necessarily want them, but I think they absolutely have to be available to more people, so people can use it as a mechanism of taking some power over their lives.
Brilliant, thanks, Martin. Absolutely. Mo, you've got your hand up.
Thank you. I just wanted to ask Charlotte, I was a little bit confused as to how, I think the work that she was doing was fantastic, and I think it's great that they're getting so many people involved. I was just a little bit unsure about how that same ethos was being reflected at the City Council within adult social care themselves, and just, you know, is she like the person that's battling with the council, or have they moved over, if you see what I mean? Where's the balance of power? I was a little bit unsure how that all worked. And I just wanted to very quickly agree with exactly what Martin's just said. About 4 years ago, before we started this process, that happened at Leicester City Council. They re-tendered and they chose a different direct support payment service. And we, as direct payment users, were just told, you've got to move from this place to that place. And it was horrendous. Nothing transferred over. We didn't get salaries properly. It was just awful for about 6 months. And I think that's why in my presentation I did earlier, I focused on one of the key things we have done is, as people who draw on support, we have been heavily involved in designing the tender that goes out the next time. In fact, we've virtually led everything on there. And so that we are going to be part of choosing the next people who take us on board and offer us that service, to ensure that it is a service that we want, and that they do have a transitional plan in place. That was a big part of what we wrote in there. I mean, we could have spoke for hours about what we're doing, but, you know, I think involving people who it is going to affect in that process is absolutely paramount, because you're going to fail if you don't. And I know they have to retender every few years, it's a government requirement, but people that are going to use the service must be involved. Thank you.
Thanks. Could Charlotte, could you respond to Mo's point about, you know, where were the council in this? Because obviously there's some exciting stuff going in Hammersmith about Fulham. When you got Tara and Kevin there, then you know you're all right. So
yes, you know, anything that Tara and Kevin are involved in, I am so happy about. I suppose you can say I'm the person fighting for this, and, you know, somebody external to the council trying to fight for this choice, control, independence, flexibility, and trying to get the processes straightened out with them. We are an external support service. I'm not internal to the council, so I only have so much knowledge as to what they're doing, I'm afraid. And I tried to put as much as possible into my presentation, but it is very much from the stance of the support service as opposed to the council.
Thank you. Thanks ever so much. Now we've got Chris Costello, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, some good work is being done, and I welcome the good work that is being done. But a lot of councils misuse the power that they assume they've got and possibly have got. And that's why people don't trust councils or scared of them. Over the last 20 years, I've got involved in so many areas. And I'm glad I have, because it's given me an insight onto how councils work or don't work. And I'm now in so many subcommittees. I try to improve social care. That I'm glad I'm there, but the power is still there, and council has got to understand that they're there for the people. The people aren't there for the council. And unfortunately, a lot of people who work for councils think they are the bee's knees. And a few years ago, my daughter was threatened by her neighbour with the words, "I work for the council." As though, so what? The power has to be used in the right way. Thank you.
Brilliant, thanks, Chris. And we've got we've got a social care future attendee. I'm not sure who that is. You've got your hand up. You know who you are. If your name is, no, just it's not. I've got, yeah, just social care future attendee.
Yeah,
with your hand up.
you're waving, but you just need to unmute yourself to be able to
Unmute yourself.
speak.
There we go.
Yeah.
Can you unmute yourself?
Dana, can we unmute?
We can't, no. We can mute, but not unmute.
I need to put it in the chat
as well, so.
Yeah.
I've requested that she unmutes, so I'm hoping
yeah, me
that
too.
Possible.
No. Can you?
Might just need to put the question in the chat or the.
Yeah, pop the question in the chat, okay? Or pop your observation in the chat if you
I'm
can.
all right now. I'm here.
Oh, you're there? There we go.
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can.
It's when she tells me I'm mute, she frees me. Can you still hear me?
Yep.
Yeah. Right. I lost connection, so you lost my name. It's Valerie Wood. I'm a carer for my husband who's got motor neurons disease. There's been some fantastic work shown this afternoon. I have to congratulate all those who've done it. But I think I want to do is not to lose sight for those people who are not in direct payments, or at least thinking about direct payments. There's a lot of emphasis being put on about this type of work and those that are drawing from it. But like the lady said, Shirley, she said when she first looked at direct payments, it frightened her. It was too much for her to handle. I haven't heard anything really about how we're going to consider those people who are maybe considering it, thinking about it, whether it's the best for them. It's all about people who've got direct payments, or this ISF. I mean, I champion people, the older people, the end of life people, people that are really, really vulnerable. And I would like to see within the social care future some emphasis on that, really. Because I'm looking at it for maybe a time where I might have to go towards it, and it's terrifying me, I have to say. And when somebody says, thank goodness, or intimates, thank goodness I haven't got to have anything to do with social workers and the emergency weekend services and things like that, even makes me feel a bit sick, because I know I'm going to probably have to rely on all those social services, and it really frightens me. So for the future, if it could be considered that, yes, this is all brilliant work, but there are other aspects that also need to be considered for this movement.
Thanks, Valerie. And I think
can I just say, I think that's absolutely right, Valerie. And we are thinking about it. And I guess in particular, lots of older people, as you were saying, and people towards the end of their life are experiencing the things that you describe, and may well not feel that they want to use direct payments. I don't know if Sian is here. Is Sian still with us?
I'm not sure she is.
Sian, go on, tell us what you're up to and what we've been talking about.
Well, I mean, I've been posting some stuff in the chat about how we think about older people, because certainly on direct payments, they are the take up among older people is much lower, and that appears to be in large part because people do not want to have to use direct payments to employ people. And the messaging around direct payments is that is precisely what they're there for. And actually, that's been true in some of the presentations today. There's been that assumption, hasn't there? In terms of what we're doing, we're recognising at Social Care Futures that the voice of older people is not as strong as it should be, and that actually older people have different insights which are going to really enrich the movement. And so we've been talking about ways to engage older people in discussion. And we had sadly not a walk, but a meeting earlier this week to think about how we might do that, and how rather than the conventional way of getting people into a meeting like this, is to actually start to look at natural networks of older people and use those networks to have this kind of discussion. Is that broadly what you wanted me to say, Martin? Have I left anything about?
That's fine. And a few of us who are concerned about the voice of older people in Social Care Future are going to be getting together soon to work up more detail about what we can start to do about that. And we'd very much welcome other people's thoughts and ideas and contributions to that.
Brilliant, thank you. And Deanne, you've put you've gone the opposite end of the scale and said, don't forget the young people as well. So we're really trying to pay attention to making sure that we come with all our own lived experiences, and that's really, really relevant. And yet we want to make sure that we kind of extend that to the full range of people who might draw upon social care support, which is potentially anybody, of course, isn't it? So we know that's really, really important. So yeah, absolutely. I'm just going to check and see if we've got anybody else with a hand up. We've got one hand there. Is that a legacy hand, or have we got a hand? Shirley, that was your legacy hand, wasn't it? There we go. So, no, Shirley.
Yeah, it's me. It's me. I just want to share, with what Valerie said, with the social workers and everything. I feel exactly the same way, but it's the system. It's the system. I have to be fair as well. It is scary. It is scary. You're absolutely right with DP. I don't want to frighten anybody off, but I'm just being honest, because at first I did not want to do it, because I just came home with my mum and I had dietitians, coming here, occupational health physios and the carers and stuff. But I tried it and I thought, well, if it doesn't work, then I'll just go back to commission care. That's it. It's just straightforward, even though I'm not a fan of, what I've been, it's only bad experience that I've been through. There are some social workers that know everything, some don't. They have to go back and double check. And sometimes the system change or people leave, in the council, Chris, I hear what you had to say. I do partly agree, but I still have to carry on, for my mum. I have to deal with them, you know what I mean? And be patient. And I'm trying. But so far with the DP, it's better than the commission for me, but I do appreciate what you said and I understand. I just wanted to just share that. I don't want to scare you guys.
Thank you so much, Shirley. Anna's made a really good suggestion in the chat that anybody who perhaps wants to be part of having that conversation, if you pop your emails in the chat, because I think we'd love to broaden that chat out. So please, if you're interested in having that chat about making sure that we really do focus on a wider group, particularly on older people, pop your email in the chat. Just put older people and pop your email, and then we can pick that up. So I don't know, we got hands up. That's just Shirley. There we go. Brilliant. Okay, so there's lots and lots of good stuff there, and I think that as we've said repeatedly this afternoon, this bit is tougher. This is properly a journey. This is the starting to kind of turn the oil tanker around, of how we've always done things. So I think that it's really good where people have to hear from people who are kind of really starting on that journey and thinking about some of the things that we can do to actually get that journey working. So I'm going to stop sharing that screen now. So we're coming towards the end of the afternoon, and I just wanted to get you to do one thing together. And it's another Menti poll, just because I just wanted to get your voices. So is just to have a reflection of what you've heard today that has really made you think. Where have your kind of like, oh my goodness moments been? That's maybe think. Not, it could be a light bulb moment, or it could be a, oh my goodness, that's a huge problem moment. Yeah. And the other thing is, one thing you're going to do from today, because you know we're all about action here, so we really like to hear about what the actions are going to be. So there's another QR code there that you can scan with your phone, or please, if you're thinking I'm done for today, I can't be bothered with Menti, pop it into the chat. And it's the what you've heard that's really made you think, and it's what you're going to do from today. Okay, and there's a couple of great, thank you so much. We've got Dawn and Sue and Valerie and Val and Tammy all signing up to want to talk about older people. Fantastic. I really appreciate that. So I'll just let you have a chance to, this is a bit more typing in this one because this is an open answer, so you've got a few words, so have a little think and then start popping your thoughts about what's really made you think today and one thing you're going to do. So Tammy's got an action, already arranged a meeting with Leicester to discuss their changes and approach. Fantastic, love it. Again, so one thing that's made you think, let's hear about. So people's solutions are awesome, absolutely. Practical next steps. It's made someone think about individual service funds, absolutely. Yeah, Gaynor, could you just pop the QR code back on again? Would that be all right? Thank you.
Links in the chat as well.
Thank you. Sian, you've asked about getting the chat afterwards. Yes, we're saved. The chat will be saved, and we'll share it with everybody, so that everybody who wants to link up with somebody who shared an email will do so. And I might even see if I can do something clever with kind of stopping people having to trawl through the chat and actually looking at putting together all the people who said they want to talk about older people and putting together all the people who picked some of the themes this morning. So I'll do that. So Tammy, one of the actions you're saying is that you'd like your individual service fund contract, to be reviewed. Martin's got a practical next steps about bringing people together around the ideas and the initiatives that people have come up with today as part of what we do next. What else have we got? Reviews that focus on 3 main questions and developing self-reviews. Yeah, I love that stuff about the reviews, keeping them really, really simple. A good review, you can just say what's worked and what's not worked and what do we need to do differently, can't you? So people say they want to know much more about individual service funds. We've got to challenge and remove bureaucracy and red tape and not just support people to navigate it, definitely. Can you just scroll back up so I can see some of those? There's something about complex needs. There we go. That you need good supporters. Yeah, I think that anybody needs good supporters to understand the system. Brilliant. So considering direct payments. Lovely. Next one down. Sian, you said, is there something about what the actual rules are about how direct payments can be used and what the local authority interpretations are? Absolutely, yeah. And the rules are very simple. You know, they are, it's got to meet the outcomes, it's got to be legal. So Martin, you're saying, could we put a little set of resources together with the things that people are asking about individual service funds? Like, that's a really good idea. Mo, you're saying how key it is to have committed leadership. Really good to have value. Valerie, you're saying great to follow up on older people. Lily, you're saying my immediate thought on individual service funds. Let's not go there until direct payment is more universally understood. Direct payment, yeah, direct payment's been around, where are we now? 25 years, more than 25 years. So keep it simple and not complicate it more. I think we're trying to do both at the same time, Lily, is we're trying to say, okay, it's not either or, because there are people who don't want to manage direct payments and people who might currently manage a direct payment like I do, but who are thinking in the future, I might not want to do that because actually it's an awful lot of hard work. I want to make sure there is that option there. So we're trying to do them both at the same time, but you're right, it is complicated. Kate, you're saying, Kate not Gaynor said, you had a review recently where the social worker brought no paperwork. We just talked until she wanted to make a note and she pulled out a blank piece of printer paper. Fantastic. And Martin, you're saying people really need individual service funds now as a way of escaping control. They absolutely do. Tammy, we haven't touched upon low rates of direct payments. You're right, I know. Accessible information, Kate, you're absolutely right. Brilliant. So what else have we got? Trust in social workers. Brilliant. So Gaynor, can we just move on to some of the things that people are going to do? That'd be fantastic. I'd like to hear some of the actions. Okay. Oh, we're not there yet. Okay, fair enough. Sian, your observation that direct payments are becoming a bit more restrictive. So yeah, you're absolutely right. I think that reminding local authority they don't have to say you can't do this, that actually anything's possible so long as they make really good outcomes. So we could take up the issue, Martin, you're right, we could take up the low rates of direct payments, really take that as a powerful issue. So let's hear some of the things. Let's get yourself on now to the one thing you're going to do for today. So put together some resources that people have asked for. Excellent. Oh, someone is going to get together with to do the more be human stuff. Fantastic. Make sure we're connecting into a bigger network. Excellent. Network with other providers to try and lever some change within the council. Brilliant. Oh, Martin, that's interesting to know. So at TLAP, at Think Local Act Personal, they have it in their plan for next year to look at the low direct payment rate issue. Excellent. Ask my council about individual service fund. That's a really good idea. If everybody who was here today went to their council and said, can you tell me about what your individual service fund offer is? That would be a really good idea. Does that make you laugh, Valerie? I love it. Deanne, you'd like to link with some like-minded families, parents with young people who are about to move into adult services. There's an offer out there. Anybody want to link with Deanne? Anybody who's a family member of young people? Just put young people into the chat and then Deanne can get in touch with you. It would put the fear of God into them, Martin. You're absolutely right. And that was perhaps my intention. Kate, another conversation locally about linking families together. Brilliant. Martin you say we can talk to Kate at CQC at Care Quality Commission, definitely about these issues. That's a really good idea. That links back into our idea about how we rate councils as well. Maybe that's a conversation we could have with Kate Peroni as well. That would be a good idea. And ask our head of services for people with learning disabilities and mental health if my local, so you're gonna do that, ask that question. He didn't know what they were, of course, yeah. So engage with others who are interested in promoting co-production, investigate individual service funding options in my area. Let's do lots of that. Brilliant. Any other actions? I'm never going to write. While you're just doing your final actions, I'm going to, but Lily, I've just saw it. This meetings have been really good. I'm going to share the social care future with my networks. Please, please, please do. You've been really active today, Lily. It's been fab to hear from you. So please do share. Just while people are putting their last few actions from today on, practical stuff, we've got a whole bunch of collating of information today and tidying it up and putting it together in a way that hopefully will be useful to you. And as I said, we will share the chat and I will have a go at tidying it up to see if I can actually make it easier for you to navigate finding people who might want to talk about the same things as you do. I'm making an offer to try and do that. I might not succeed, but I'll make an offer anyway. So Anna, do you want to just say a little bit more about kind of the bigger social care future picture?
Yeah, I will try to. Thank you everyone for all of your input today. And I don't know if you're like me, but I'm feeling really exhausted, but also, you know, so many things to go away and think about. As always, you know where we are. And if you suddenly think, oh, what about that? You know, feel free to get in touch with us. We are a small, well, we're not small, we're an unfunded movement, and it is all about all of us doing these things. And I think that's what's great about the kind of conversations that have been sparked today, that you know, people have put in the chat, and hopefully we can then, they will build into other things, because that's where we really can make a lot of difference. We'll go away and digest what people have told us today, and also it will then feed into with the other sessions that we've been doing and we'll be doing soon. And then in the spring, we're hoping to have a couple of sessions where we will look at sort of the what next, I guess. I think there's something for me about, and we've been talking about this as conveners of Social Care Future, and we'll share more with you in the next few weeks, but about how we can influence the what's going on now, because that's really important. That's what people are experiencing now, but also keep in sight that actually we are trying to get to this different system. So yeah, the system is rubbish. So I shouldn't say that. The system can be rubbish, but actually we want to reach that place where people aren't coming on and saying, you know, we don't want to speak to social workers, or we're scared of them taking away our direct payments, but actually where people can come on and say, yeah, I feel in control, I feel empowered, I like, great. And so it's like both of those things at once. And I think as a movement, I think we do really well, hopefully, at managing that, and where you want to feed into. Some people will want to work on the stuff now, and some people will want to look at that future vision. There's going to be some regional events as well later in the year, but we will be in touch and we will let you know all of that. If you're not signed up to our emails, I think you probably all are because you registered for this, but get in touch with Gaynor or Social Care Future email, and you'll get all the information then about future events and how you can get involved. But yeah, thank you everyone for being so active today and all your brilliant ideas, because you are what makes Social Care Future. Without you, there is no Social Care Future. So it's brilliant. Thanks.
Brilliant. Thanks, Anna. Let's just unmute yourselves, and big round of applause for everybody's contribution today. Much appreciated. So everybody unmute. Whoa, exactly.
Well done.
Thank you so much, guys. It's been lovely to spend the day with you all, and we will see you next time. And keep in touch. All right.
Okay.
Thanks ever so much. Take care, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
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 Very helpful.
Bye.
Thank you.